Okay, so at the expense of sounding a little touchy and hypersensitive, I have a thing. I have a thing. Long story short, I would like to gently encourage people to stop asking stay-at-home moms what else they have going on. And like, let me elaborate further. So I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to know, like, if somebody has something going on with a project that maybe they brought up, or something that like you guys have talked about in the past. Like if it's like a specific thing, I think it's the most normal thing in the world to want to be like, hey, how's that going, or like, how's that coming, or like whatever. But I just think that there's like, for me, and like I said, this might just be a touchy subject for me, and maybe like I'm alone on this one, but I just think sometimes it, without intending for this to be the case, it creates like this like subtle air that like being a stay-at-home mom isn't sufficient. And I have a client, you know, and I do have like at times like I might have like other interests or like hobbies that I'm diving into, or like projects that I'm working on, but for all intents and purposes, like what I have going on right now is like being at home with like our baby and our 3-year-old. And like I said, I don't know if it's a situation where it's just sensitive for me, because it's like, yeah, like sometimes I do wish that like when I had an idea about something, I could like get after it the way I could in the past, or like where I just had the flexibility to like, you know, dedicate hours and hours and time to things like in a way that I have in the past. But for right now, that just isn't the case. And not only have I made my peace with that, but I also think that like it's just so wildly demanding, like being home with your kids. And one of my kids goes to school during the day, and I still am like up to my nose and like feeling like there's just so much stuff that has to get done all the time. So I just say that to say, you know, just to kind of plant a seed, because I feel like it's especially difficult if you have historically like had kind of cool stuff going on, or like projects that people would get excited about. I think there's almost like this like, oh, okay, cool, like, well, what's next, you know? And sometimes it's like, this is the thing that's next, you know? And I think what I'm getting at is just that I think moms in general, like whether you're working in the house or outside of the house or whatever, like I think sometimes it's just like an underrated role. And I think I just have a sensitivity to the idea that like it needs to be supplemented. And like, so I had this conversation with my husband, like it was like halfway between a vent and like a, can you believe this, like what do you think? And he was just kind of like, you know, what is it, like, is it that you don't think being like at home is like interesting? Like, is it like interesting versus fulfilling? And I was like, no, I think it's interesting. I was like, you know, I think especially from a content standpoint, I think there's just a sweet spot for me personally when it comes to like how much of like that intimate private life that you want to share on a public platform, especially when it comes to like kids. And yeah, it's super interesting and it's really fun and like crazy and draining and tiring and all that different stuff. But I think it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, but do you want to, how much do you want to share, right? Like how much do you really want to pull back the curtain on that type of stuff? So then it just kind of, you know, sometimes feels a bit like you don't have the time always to do the other stuff, and like the role of being home with your kids, like that is the where the bulk of the time is going. So I think it just, for me, it always feels like a bit bizarre when somebody asks me that, because like I don't care if you know 10 girls who like they're stay-at-home moms with their kids and like they're killing it and they have their small business and they're doing all these different things. Like for me, my cup is full. Like I wake up tired, I go to sleep exhausted, like my hands are full, I feel like, at any point in time. So kudos to them. For me, I'm still sorting it out. But yeah, anyway, I'm rambling. That all I'm trying to say is just think twice, okay? Just think twice.